archons and organic portals. So I've noticed that the only time that an archon will show themselves, they're very deep, and you will activate these matrix agent like energy in an organic portal or whatever is really happening here. All I notice is that these archon spirits, let's call them, come through these people, let's call them organic portal people or whatever. And what I notice is they're very deep. The archon spirits will not come out unless you threaten the control system. If you look fearless, they'll come out to try and make you fear. If you threaten the feeling of their control at all, not just if you threaten with information, whistleblowing or whatever, you know what I mean? But just even if you look fearless and like you may cause a problem, that's enough to bring them out. But when I say that's enough to bring them out, that was probably the wrong way to say it, because what I was trying to say is it's actually not that easy to bring out archonic spirits in organic portals. That's what I was trying to say. They're very deep, and it's only if you threaten the matrix control system and or their, personal control in that part of the neighborhood or grid or whatever. So really what I've noticed is that you guys listening to this video who are, I'll just say, a normal person, not a rebel like myself, right? You go to work, you're part of society, blah, blah, blah. You have the AKA sort of normal life, and you're sitting here going, who is this guy? He's got no evidence. He's just making stuff up and making YouTube videos. That's what you're thinking about me. I understand it all. Look, I've read a lot of science. I can make some good science videos too, but this stuff, this seems, I don't know, harder, more of a challenge than copy pasting, like science kind of is a lot of the time. Anyway, and surface stuff, and that's why I remember reading about organic portals in the start. I used to call them societals and sleepwalkers, but when I first started reading about under the nomenclature or the moniker of organic portal, one of the first things I read was that they make very good scientists, because in science you're just looking really at the surface of reality. The loop and warp of web, which we call the fifth dimension, as hippie spiritual people supposedly. The fifth dimension is what you guys as scientists call the unified field, the Planck length. So, I can science stuff out, but there's no reason to all the time. That's your language, and you're just asking me to talk to you in your language, and I don't have to. I'm speaking to the world in these videos in my language. Comprehende? Good. So, look, these archonic things, you don't know about them, you think I'm making something up. Why don't you research? Why don't you try to see? Why don't you, try to open your third eye or whatever, So, my point in this video, besides that little rant, was to say that they're very deep. I noticed that the archons, they'll be hidden very deep. They'll only come out if you threaten the matrix system. So this video is kind of for the opposite of preaching to the choir. I'm trying to not preach, I'm not trying to proselytize, but I'm trying to speak now to the people who don't believe or don't understand. You guys is what I'm trying to speak to right now. You won't see them unless you begin to step out of line. That's a political quote, the left-right party. What if I told you they're the same bird? They're just two different wings of the same bird, the left and the right political parties, So my point in that is, you got to look deeper, and the archonic thing, this whole spirit stuff, I really think that you're not going to see it unless you step out of line. And that's when the shit ends, when you step out of line. When you're within line and within the colouring within the lines, let's say, when you colour within the lines, you're within the lines and no one has anything to say about it. Oh, good, colour within the lines. But if you start to walk astray a bit, you start to rebelize, you start to think for yourself more, you start to poke and you prod the system and so on and so forth, all these sorts of rebellious sort of actions, then you will begin to see what us crazy people are talking about when we're talking about all these interdimensional entities and all this stuff, okay? Demonics and spirits and blah, blah, blah. You're going to see all this matrix stuff we're talking about, matrix agents, and funny behaviors of what we're calling soulless humans and all this business. You will see this only when, and it's not going to happen unless you step out of line, unless you poke and you prod, think for yourself. You know what I mean? I'm trying to give you the idea that you're not going to see what we're talking about by researching on the internet. You're not going to see what we're talking about, interdimensional aliens or whatever we are talking about. You're not going to see any of this stuff unless you really poke and prod for it in your life, right? And you're not poking and prodding if you're just walking straight and narrow down illusionary lines, because they're illusionary.